Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. The regular season is over on Draftkings, but playoff rolls on, and we have a wild card weekend. 4 games, a massive slate on Draftkings in terms of the sizing of the tournaments for this 4-game slate. There's also going to be showdowns individually for each game. I'm sure that they're going to post a 2-game slate for the Saturday games and a 2-game slate for the Sunday games, each with their own cash games, 50-50s, double ups, tournaments. We're going to break down the 4-game slate, and hopefully that will help you because I'm going to get to talk about a lot more players on this than we normally would on a full slate, 13, 15, 16 games. Just there's only 4 to talk about. So we're going to break down this slate and try and help you guys put together lineups and groups and everything else that we are for cash games or tournaments for wild card weekend. So thank you guys for clicking all season. Like I said, we don't stop until they stop posting NFL slates. So I welcome you back to the channel. Hopefully you guys are still interested. We are approaching 30,000 subscribers. I think I'm less than 200 away from 30,000 YouTube subs. Thank you guys very much for all the support this season. If you're new to the channel, if you're just clicking by, I would appreciate it if you could drop a like on this video. Please subscribe to the channel and ring that notifications bell. You guys could help me get to 30,000. It would mean a lot. I really appreciate all the support this season. So let's continue it on, and let's hopefully have ourselves a good weekend for week 1 of the NFL playoffs. 4 games on the slate, as I said. Taking a look at the DK Sportsbook here for the totals and the spreads. The Bills are the first game on the slate. They travel to Houston. Houston is a 3-point favorite in this one, over under a 41.5. That's up from where the Bills have been, living in the mid 30s to the high 30s. So more points expected out of the Bills, and we kind of know where the ball is going with them. The Texans are going to get everybody back this week from injury, so we're gonna and from the rest that they had in week 17. So hopefully that they're firing on all cylinders here. The Patriots are at home for a playoff game, and they're reeling with that loss to the Miami Dolphins that would have given them a bye. Now they have to play on wild card weekend, and they're playing against the Titans, who have been one of the hottest teams in the league the last half of the season, firing on every cylinder since Tannehill took over at quarterback. Derrick Henry leads the league in rushing after that 200-yard explosion in week 17. They're 4-point dogs, 4.5-point dogs here on the road, 43.5-point total here. Minnesota Vikings go to New Orleans on Sunday, the highest total on the weekend. Saints favored by 8. Vikings and them a total of 48 points. And the Seahawks go to Philly to face the Eagles. To cap off the slate, Eagles 2-point dogs at home here, over under of 46. So taking a look at the players and the pricing on the slate, the first thing that pops out to me is that Tom Brady is the cheapest starting quarterback on wild card weekend at 5,800. This is the world that we live in now. Tom Brady kind of, father time remains undefeated. Brady has not had that many 20+ point games. A lot of them in the first half of the season. 5 of the first 6 games as they were playing teams like the Giants and Washington and the Jets and Miami. Pittsburgh's a respectable defense in that group. But then they started playing teams with a little bit better defense. Philadelphia, Baltimore, Dallas, Kansas City. Then he posted 12 against Cincinnati. Buffalo, the second time, held him under 20 fantasy points. In Miami in week 17-15. If he can get you to 20 fantasy points, and I think that he's going to have to, is I kind of feel like Tennessee could win this game on the field with as well balanced and efficient as they've been, and they do certain things that I think New England struggles to stop. As good as that defense is, they're going to put you in some awkward situations with Henry and with the talent on the outside that they have, as well as the athleticism at tight end. And we saw what happened against Houston. When Houston got up big, that was Tom Brady's best game of the second half, as he had to throw it over 40 times. He had 3 touchdowns in that game, playing mostly garbage time type points, and he was chasing, got you the 300-yard bonus. So at 5,800, I don't hate it, but it's probably not where I want to end up. Russ Wilson with the great matchup against Philly's secondary in Philadelphia, and favored, and missing most of his more talented running backs. A Combat Doc, thank you very much for the 300 bits, man. Appreciate that. Playing without his running backs now, with Chris Carson, who has been injured, and then his backups got injured. They're playing with a 6th round draft pick, and they brought Marshawn Lynch off the couch to score a touchdown in week 17. Any week that you think Russ Wilson, as efficient as he is at throwing the football, any week you think he's going to throw it 35, 45 times is a week that I want to play Russ and I want to play his pass catchers. Unfortunately, the price at 6,800 with the other guys that I want to plug into this lineup are going to keep me from doing that. But that does not mean that I'm not going to have Russ Wilson lineups in this tournament. I'm most certainly going to do that. If you want to go over to Daily Roto, if you want to use their lineup optimizer, if you want to use their builds and build groups around Russ Wilson, by all means, go and do that. When you do, there's a link down below in the description, or when you just go to the site, make sure that you use promo code SmizzLife at checkout. They have great projections for not just NFL, but NBA, golf, NHL with a lineup optimizer for each one of those. So if you want to go check them out, definitely do. I can get you 10% off at checkout if that's the route you want to go. So if I'm building Russ Wilson groups, and I want to focus on trying to win that tournament, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build a Russ Wilson group to try and attack this. I'm probably going to use Metcalf, Lockett, Hollister, and I'm going to make sure that in every Russ Wilson at quarterback group, at least one and probably two of these guys are going to be in every Russ Wilson at quarterback lineup. I'm also going to build, we talk about this most of the time when it comes to building showdown groups. I'm going to build a second group, what I call a bring back group with Russ Wilson. And I'm going to have all of the players that are viable on Philly in this group. And I'm going to have at least one with a max of two. So I'll set a group that says in between 1 and 2 of these players. Miles Sanders, we have to monitor, left this game with an injury. Unfortunately, as I had a lot of Miles Sanders in week 17. He is considered day to day. They've got him out for an MRI on Monday. If he is out in this game, Boston Scott did a great job in his stead. Only ran for 2.8 per carry, but did rush for 3 touchdowns. A big option through the air. They're going to scheme to get him the ball a lot, and those valuable PPR points because DraftKings is full PPR. So I would build a group with them. I'd build a group. I'd include Ward. Depending on which one of the wide receivers is back, I might include one of them. Definitely going to include Goddard. And if Ertz is playing, which I expect him to, I would also include Ertz with at least one, possibly 2 of those pass catchers so that I have a Russ Wilson stack or double stack with a bring back. But for my main lineup, I'm probably not going to go that route because I think that he's a little too expensive for the other things that I want to pull off in that lineup. We can do all the same things for every one of these quarterbacks down the list if you're building tournament lineups. Building those groups with the bringbacks, very important. Drew Brees, Minnesota's been very good at stopping the run this year, not as good at stopping the pass. Drew Brees at home, always had historic home road splits for him. 27 DraftKings points plus at home this year in the 6 games he played, 15.6 in games that he played on the road. I don't have a problem with Drew Brees this week. I think that we can get away with playing cheaper quarterbacks. Maybe saving that 4, 5, 600 is going to be very important with as tight as the rosters are, as tight as the pricing is this week. If I'm going to get exposure to Drew Brees, it's probably going to be through Kamara. It's probably going to be through Michael Thomas. But the leverage play here would be Jared Cook, who does not see a ton of looks, right? Does not see a ton of looks, but has done exceptionally well once they get around the red zone and around the end zone, as Drew Brees came out and said, look, I trust him. I'm just going to throw the ball up to him. And Michael Thomas deservedly gets a ton of defensive respect and a ton of attention once they get close. Doesn't matter because you can't guard him, so he still gets his looks in the end zone. But Jared Cook, we've seen him multiple times in the last month have multiple touchdowns. One time he just scored 1, but he has paths to 20 points on very few targets because of how efficient and effective this offense is, with multiple red zone trips per game and him being as such a good target inside the red zone. So I'm going to get my shares of Drew Brees probably through his pass catchers. Josh Allen is somebody that, again, an elevated team total for them this week by a few points versus what they've been before. 9 rushing touchdowns this year. I'm sure I'm going to have some lineups that are going to break the rules, right? If I'm playing a single entry tournament or a 3-max tournament, the rules that I'm speaking of here, Josh Allen, to me, is diametrically opposed to Devin Singletary. They both require touchdowns for upside on the ground. Devin Singletary ended the year with 4, and Josh Allen, if I'm playing a lineup with Josh Allen, I will probably build a group that says do not use Devin Singletary in that lineup. If I'm going to hand build a lineup, I might break that rule and have both of them in there, as Singletary could get there on volume. Maybe he breaks a long touchdown somewhere and Josh Allen also does his thing. But we haven't seen that many ceiling games out of Josh Allen this year, even with the amount of rushing touchdowns that he had. Only one game of over 30 Draftkings points this year. If he has a massive game, I think it's very difficult for Singletary to have also a 25 plus point game if Josh Allen has 30, unless one of those is a passing touchdown to Singletary, because if he has that 30 plus point game, it means that Josh Allen took the rushing touchdowns. And if Singletary has a 30 point game, it means that he took the rushing touchdowns, and there just aren't that many rushing touchdowns to go around. So I will have Josh Allen lineups probably paired with one or both of Cole Beasley and John Brown. That would exclude Singletary. Deshaun Watson, I am more interested in Deshaun Watson if they get his pass catchers back and healthy this week. And right now we have no guarantees of that. DeAndre Hopkins, as good as any wide receiver in the league, I'm never going to tell you not to play him, but he does catch one of the best cover corners this week for Buffalo, which means that he's going to require Will Fuller to be healthy and active. Right now, they say he's progressing and headed in the right direction. If he is active over the past 3 seasons, this offense, I'm not really going that far on a limb here. Good. You know, an offense is better when it has a good player in it. Yes. Right. But this offense runs way better when Will Fuller is out there to occupy safeties and create space underneath. So in the case that Will Fuller is here, I like what he can do to try and stretch the field, which opens things up for Hopkins, possibly opens things up for a value tight end for us, as well as opening things up for Deshaun Watson, who gives us a rushing floor with a possible ceiling with multiple touchdowns on the ground that we've seen from him in the past. I don't know that 300 yards is in play for him this week at 6,400, but that ceiling possibility keeps his price exceptionally high. For me, I think that Tannehill's a good play at 6,300. We've seen him do enough with his legs, but he's been extremely efficient through the air. Although against New England, in New England, that defense is tough. I think they're going to concentrate on trying to win this game with defense and the running game, which means that Tannehill at 6,300 is a tournament play only for me, not a main lineup play. If you're going to play him, you're going to stack him with probably definitely one and probably 2 guys. The secondary guy, I don't even have to tell you that AJ Brown's the primary guy. The secondary guy being Jonnu Smith or Corey Davis as the secondary guy in that stack, and bringing it back with at least 1, if not 2, of the New England Patriots if you think that this game possibly shoots out, which it could. But Tannehill probably going to be a little bit less efficient in this game against an extremely tough pass defense. I'm not expecting these multiple touchdowns, 0 interception games from him. This is going to be kind of a struggle, which leaves us with one of 2 guys, Kirk Cousins. And yes, they're probably going to be chasing in this game as New Orleans, the biggest favorite on the day, playing in a weather-free environment in the Dome in New Orleans. He's going to have to put up 300 and multiple touchdowns. This defense is tough to do that against, but it could happen. We've seen crazier things. I don't know that you can, run the ball without the lead against New Orleans. You're going to have to score touchdowns. They're going to have to get ahead. And New Orleans does what Minnesota cannot stop. I don't think that they're going to stop them defensively, which leaves us with Carson Wentz as my starting quarterback against Seattle Seahawks, which I don't mind at all. Carson Wentz has been exceptional the past 5-6 games, 28, 23, 22, 21, and 17 points last week against the Giants, 289 and only 1 touchdown as Boston Scott scored basically all the touchdowns on the ground. That's not going to repeat as many times as possible. I don't know that you have to stack him, but you can in tournaments. If you're building a main lineup, I don't think that you have to. And we'll get to why in just a minute. There's 2 players on this slate that I want to have most. Carson Wentz allows me to get them. The first one is Derrick Henry. The second one is Michael Thomas. I'm plugging those 2 guys without having to explain why into the lineup. You want me to explain why? Fine. 25 points per game, 30.7 points per game when playing at home, 19.9 on the road. I'm not a big home road splits guy, but when a wide receiver is tied to a quarterback and there's no weather possible in this game, there's no rain, there's no cold, there's no wind. This is an environment that is a fast track with the highest team total on the slate, and Michael Thomas as involved as basically anybody in the league. Ignore this week 17 as it's completely irrelevant. They're going to get back to this 10, 12, 15 target per game Michael Thomas against a Minnesota defensive backfield that has not been able to stop anybody. And Derrick Henry, they're going to give this kid the ball 25 plus times. Yes, he does not have the floor that some other pass catching backs have, but does it matter when he's going to get 100% of the carries inside the 5, which are the most leveraged carries on the field, and he's going to get 25 touches on the ground? And when this guy gets it rolling, there's no defensive back in the league that wants to try and stand in front of him. And even if they do, he had 1,000 yards after contact this year. After first contact. 8,200, 25 touches. We're going to have to find some value in order to get these guys in there. I'm just going to plug the cheapest defense. It's the Vikings. I know it goes against Michael Thomas. We can find our way there, and hopefully some other value pops up throughout the week. That leads me to my other running backs. As I said, I believe that Singletary is mutually exclusive to Josh Allen. If I have Josh Allen in the lineup, probably don't want Singletary. If I do have Singletary in the lineup, if I don't have Allen in the lineup, I probably am going to want some shares of Devin Singletary this week, as I believe he will get you around 20 touches in this game. Houston has not been the stopper that they want. The Bills want to ground and pound this game with both Allen and Singletary. We're of the hopes that Singletary gets at least one touchdown here with those 20 touches. Maybe he breaks a long one. He does have that ability to get us close to that 100-yard bonus, but he doesn't need it to get to the 18 points that we're looking for on a short slate without a lot of running backs that are projected for a lot of touches. As I said, Miles Sanders, if he's healthy, great. They're probably going to cycle in some Boston Scott as well. I mentioned how Minnesota very good against the run, but Alvin Kamara is not a run-only running back. You don't need 20 carries from him. You're never going to get 20 carries from him. Maybe you get 13 to 15 carries, but his value lies in the fact that he'll get you 5 to 10 targets pretty much every single week. And it does not matter how good a defense is at stopping the run when you've got a guy who's essentially a glorified slot receiver who's going to get you that great floor of targets with the big playability. And most promising for me in terms of Alvin Kamara is the fact that they have now given him the inside the 5 carries for the past 2 weeks, resulting in multiple touchdowns on the ground both of those 2 weeks. Yes, one of those was on a 40-yard run against Tennessee. He's always had that ability. It's been truncated a little bit this year because of the injury that he sustained to his lower leg, but he still has that in his bag. He can bust a big play, but the fact that he has those carries once again inside the 5 gives him much more touchdown upside. So if you want to come off of Derrick Henry to save some money and get down to Alvin Kamara, I get it. I'm fine with that. I totally understand. For me, we're going to need to find another value play in here. And for me, it's Travis Homer at 5,300 going up against Philly. We don't like to usually play running backs against Philadelphia, but looking at his usage the past 2 weeks with all the injuries that have been sustained for this Seattle Seahawks organization at running back, yes, they brought in Marshawn Lynch. Yes, Marshawn Lynch might get those 1 and 2 yard touchdown opportunities, but in terms of the volume that Homer's getting, both in the passing game and on the ground, if I can get 12 to 15 touches out of Homer at 5,300, considering that he's had 11 catches over the past 2 weeks, I'm buying here at 5,300 in a game that I think is going to be close and competitive. And as good a quarterback as Russ Wilson is at moving the ball, especially in the 2-minute drill, Homer has another chance at 5+ catches. So a very solid floor for him here. And if he can find his way into the end zone, great. But I think he can get there on volume alone. Leaving us with wide receivers and a tight end, 2 and 1 to pick from. Don't know that we can afford the expensive ones. Ertz and Goddard, obviously good value plays against Seattle, who is the worst defense left against tight ends on this wild card weekend. Ertz, if he is back from his injury, is going to see a ton of volume because of the lack of wide receivers that they have for health right now in this Eagles offense. Same goes for Goddard. 10 targets last week without Ertz, 12 the week before when Ertz got hurt. These two are probably going to see somewhere between 15 and 20 targets combined you're going to have to pay up to get to them, as they are the two highest priced tight ends on the slate. I mentioned Jared Cook as a solid secondary option in a stack with Drew Brees for tournaments, or as a leverage play if you're not going to play Alvin Kamara and you want to get Cook into those lineups because you think he's going to get the touchdowns when they get in close. Totally get that at 4,900 as a leverage play off of the more popular Thomas and Kamara plays. Hollister, I also think, is in play for two reasons. One, price, two, volume. Based on the lineup that I've built here with Henry and Thomas, I don't think that I can get to him, but he is a viable option this week as well at 4,300. He was in my initial build, but I decided I wanted to go get the two premium studs. So I'm going to have to get off of Hollister for this lineup, but I think he's one of the better tight end plays on the week. Jonnu Smith against New England. I don't like playing tight ends against New England. Not something that I like to really do. Don't like playing tight ends against Buffalo either, but I need some value. And based on the guys that are under 3,300, I believe that Jordan Aikens has the best path to 5 to 7 targets out of any of them. Yes, you can go get somebody like Dawson Knox and try to get there on 2 to 4 targets. I think that Aikens gives me a little bit of a better floor, and at only 2,800 does not need a touchdown to pay off, though he could get us one. I'm just not banking on that. If I can get 8 points out of Aikens in this lineup to allow me to get up to the ceiling guys that have an opportunity for 30 plus points, that's what I'm going to take in this single entry lineup, which leaves me 2 other wide receivers. The first one that I want to go with is going to be DK Metcalf. At 6,100, this kid has come along faster than anybody had hoped that he could this year. One of the league leaders in red zone targets, league leader in end zone targets, has the trust of both his offensive coordinator and his quarterback, who is, as I've mentioned numerous times this year, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in history in terms of touchdown percentage. When he throws the ball in the end zone, it can result more likely in a touchdown than basically any other quarterback in the modern era. DK Metcalf gets the most end zone targets and red zone targets on this team. Give me DK Metcalf at 6,100 in this particular lineup over Tyler Lockett, who I also like a lot, but at the discount of 1,100. And the upside for touchdowns for DK Metcalf, that's where I'm going, leaving us with 3,900. We're going to have to find some value. For me, I think that Corey Davis is the best bet for the most targets at the sub 4K range. A lot of players have been priced up. Greg Ward at 5,200. I understand that people are going to maybe try to get at Mohamed Sanu as well if you think that New England is there. I don't mind that either. I'm fine with that, especially if you want a little mini stack here where you're saying, okay, I've got Henry, so I want somebody to bring it back on New England. I get it. I'm fine with it. I'm going to take Corey Davis, as I think that the best cornerback on the other side is going to be locked up on A.J. Brown. So maybe we can get some free targets on the path of lesser resistance from Tannehill to Corey Davis. That's where I'm going to lean. I understand if you want to go a different direction, and that's fine. I hope that you do. And I wish you the best of success this week in the wild card round. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. Stay tuned. Best Buys will be out on Thursday, I believe, this week, probably later in the day than usual. The Edge podcast, we'll be recording that on Thursday as well. And I'll be back on Friday with that lineup builder show just like every week. So be sure to stay tuned for all that content. Have yourselves a very safe and a very happy new year. I'll see you guys in 2020. Bye.
He's a legend.